Imagine that you jump out of bed, full of optimism, energetic, and excited to see what the day has to offer. But as soon as you get in your car, you're stuck in the middle of a huge traffic jam. That's sort of what it's like to play today's game, but without the exhaust fumes. 5-field Kono, this time on the gaming bench. To play, you'll need a 5-field Kono board. This is just a 5x5 grid, and it can be anything really. A purpose-built board like this, a paper printout, a drawing in the dirt, whatever. Just know that the pieces move on the points, not the spaces. I made this board, and if you want to see how I did it, I have a link to my build video down in the description. You'll also need 7 pieces for each player. Again, these can be anything, as long as you can tell them apart. The game begins with all pieces on the board like this. Randomly choose who goes first. That player can move one piece, one space, diagonally, in any diagonal direction. There are no orthogonal moves, that is, moves at right angles. Kono is purely a traversal game, meaning you're simply trying to cross the board with no jumping or capturing of pieces. The goal is to move all of your pieces to the opposite side of the board so they end up in your opponent's starting position. This game is like a simplified version of Halma or Chinese checkers, but without the jumping. I have a video all about Halma if you want to check that out. Players take turns moving one piece at a time. First to occupy their opponent's starting position wins. There are 2 special situations. If your opponent still has one or more of their pieces in a starting point, and it doesn't matter if they never moved the piece or they maneuvered it back to the starting row during the game, if you occupy the rest of your opponent's starting spaces, you can claim that piece or pieces as your own and call it a win. Second, if you end up blocked with no moves, you can either call it a draw or the player who made the last move is declared the winner. All in all, it's a very simple game, but it does require a bit of strategy to optimize your moves. But one thing that isn't simple is the history of the game. Like many small abstract strategy games, the origin of 5-field Kono is difficult to track down with any certainty. But there seems to be academic consensus that the game is part of a family of games that were widely played in ancient Korea. The family of games is called Gonu. The games that I'm aware of within the family are Umogonu, 4-field Kono, and 5-field Kono. Looking at these, you might think they're just the same game, played on increasingly larger boards. This actually reminds me of Merrill's or Morris games. 4-man Morris expands to 6-man Morris, which expands to the most famous of the group, 9-man Morris. 12-man Morris was also played in the medieval period. Hypothetically, there's no upward limit to the size of the board, but even with a 165-man Morris, the rules are exactly the same as all the other Morris games. Not so with the Gonu games. The smallest, Umogonu, is a blocking game. The winner is the first player to maneuver their opponent into a spot where they can't move. It's essentially identical to the Indian game Dugati. I covered that about a year ago. Check out that video if you want to learn more. Nai-Pat Kono, or 4-field Kono, is completely different. It's a capture game in which you jump over one of your own pieces to land on your opponent's piece and remove it from the game. Reduce your opponent to one piece and you win. And then Opat Kono, or 5-field Kono, is completely different again. And we've already talked about the rules of that one. The first written English account of the Gonu family of games comes from the book Korean Games with Notes on the Corresponding Games of China and Japan, written by Stewart Culin, published in 1895. Culin was a well-respected ethnographer who studied, among other things, Asian games. In his book, he describes the rules for Umugonu and 4- and 5-field Kono. He also mentions Hyuk-pat Kono, or 6-field Kono, but only notes that this game was only known by name to my informants who were not familiar with the method of play. Determining exactly how old 5-field Kono is has been really frustrating. Usually I can find some evidence of a game's age, either archaeological artifacts or boards scratched into stone or references in ancient manuscripts, but I can't find anything for the Gonu games. In my research, I found a reference to a Gonu game board that was scratched into a brick of a 10th century Celadon kiln uncovered in Hwanghae province. I also found a reference to remains of Gonu boards found at excavations of the Soswaewon garden in Damyang. Researchers apparently found boards etched into pavers along the walkways. But I haven't been able to substantiate either of those references. It's frustrating that I have the entire internet at my fingertips, but I can't find a single photo or any academic papers, none in English at least. The oldest written account I can substantiate is Stewart Culin's book. He wrote of the game in the late 1800s, so it's safe to say it's at least that old, but is it generations older? Centuries older? I don't know. The National Museum of Korea has this painting, called a Gonu game, painted sometime prior to 1806. Looking at the figures in the painting, they appear to be playing the game I know of as Nyout. This is a circular version of the game. A gridded version, usually called Yut-nori, looks more like the other Gonu games. And that's the challenge with simple folk games like five-field Kono. Played by children and people looking to waste a couple of minutes, they're usually not the subject of great study. Now, if you wanted to learn more about Go in the same period, there's no shortage of information. There's great tomes of strategy for the game, beautifully crafted boards used by emperors and nobles, deep meditations on how the game reveals inner aspects of our lives. But Kono was probably most often drawn in the dust and played with rocks or seeds, easily played and easily forgotten. In the 20th century, Korea endured Japanese colonial rule, industrialization, and a huge influx of foreign products, including board games. Gonu games, like five-field Kono, rapidly declined in popularity, but they never went away completely. They survived in rural communities played by elders who remembered the games from their youth. I haven't mentioned this in a video before, but often when I'm researching simple abstract strategy games like this one, a lot of the academic papers I find are about math. I'm not a math guy myself, but apparently these sorts of games are perfect for coding online simulations that explore things like spatial visualization, combinational game theory, state-space complexity, and other mathematical concepts. I'm not going to go into any detail on these because I don't understand any of it, but I do find it fascinating that a simple folk game that was almost lost to time still exists, but not in a quiet Korean park somewhere, but online, powered by modern technology and studied by academics. As I alluded to in the intro, the biggest challenge in five-field Kono is avoiding a huge traffic jam. Moving all your pieces into the center can feel like you're making progress, but you'll soon find yourself stuck. A better approach is to stagger your pieces. Have one piece that aggressively moves forward, while other pieces approach more slowly. Remember, there's no jumping or captures, so you never have to worry about putting a piece in jeopardy. A staggered approach will give you more flexibility and options later in the game. Try to avoid a so-called dead triangle where two of your pieces block all forward motion for another piece behind them. Try to position your pieces in such a way that you always have an out if your opponent blocks your desired move. Try not to give your opponent easy forward moves. It's generally better to sacrifice your own forward movement than giving the other player an easy diagonal. Remember that the goal isn't to just get across the board as fast as possible. You have to occupy specific points. Try to set up your movement so your pieces have easy pathways to their final destination without a lot of backtracking. Finally, it can be tempting to simply match your opponent move for move, like opening pawns in chess, but this usually leads to congestion that requires a lot of backtracking to get around. An asymmetrical approach is often a better opening game. And that is five-field Kono. It's a small and simple game, but has a surprising depth of strategy to play it well. Again, I made this board, and if you want to see how I did it and the huge mistakes I made along the way, I have my build video linked below. As always, I've cited all my sources for this video in the show notes. If you want to do additional research on your own, have at it. If this is the kind of stuff you enjoy, I hope you like, subscribe, comment, and share this video with other like-minded game nerds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Gaming.